What if Darth Jar Jar Binks was the true Sith mastermind? Let's explore the depths of it in this video. Alarm bells rang out across Gungan City as guards rushed to halt the advance of General Grievous. Somehow he freed himself and was rampaging across the city. For Darth Jar Jar, his mind was elsewhere. The Republic had just won one of its greatest victories after a plot to assassinate the Gungan leader, Boss Lyonie. After that plot was foiled, the Gungan army managed to capture General Grievous. This should have been a crippling blow to the CIS, but reports have now started to filter in that Anakin had been captured by Count Dooku and demands Grievous in exchange. Jar Jar had just finished talking to Padme about the capture of Anakin and suggested making the trade to save his life. He meant every word of it, too. Anakin was one of his dearest friends, and he wasn't about to leave him in the hands of some third-rate Sith Lord. He had listened to Palpatine's plan for creating a new galaxy, one filled with peace and security, so that the Jedi like Obi-Wan would not need to risk their lives. Senators like Padme would not be threatened for speaking the truth, and slaves like Anakin would be free. However, he now sees that his apprentice is trying to fool him and would have to be dealt with. But first, the General. He smiles as the General tosses aside a group of Gungan guards and appears in the hallway, wielding a pair of electrostaffs. With his typical smile, Jar Jar waves the General over.
Hello. Misa gonna hurt you, sir. You betcha.
The General hurled one of the staves at Jar Jar, but right before it struck, the staff froze in midair, turned 180 degrees, and flew back at the General, striking him in the stomach and sending sparks flying. As Grievous stumbled back, Jar Jar drew a red lightsaber and threw himself at the General, flailing his arms about. The clash was swift and violent. Though the cyborg General was trained in the Jedi arts by Count Dooku, nothing prepared him for what was to come. His movements were like a wild dance, striking against every point. Grievous struggles in vain to protect himself against those attacks, but soon he finds himself defenseless, slacking as Jar Jar strikes home. A dozen cuts flash across his torso. Each one would be a mortal blow, but the Sith Lord held back. He was toying with him. Suddenly, a powerful blow sends Grievous flying across the hall. Jar Jar casually makes a squeezing motion with his hand, and the General feels a surge of pain as his armor caves in around him, leaving the Kalish coughing.
You, sir, better get running now.
General Grievous, for the first time in many years feeling fear, drops to all fours and skitters away just as more Gungan guards appear. Suddenly, Jar Jar hides his lightsabers and lets out a scream. He cries about how the General is trying to escape to the surface and that they should follow him to find Anakin. The Gungan warriors rush after the rogue General while Jar Jar hangs behind, smiling to himself. Grievous was just the start. He would need to deal with the rest of the CIS before the war went any further. With a smile, he ran after them, the rogue General taking shelter in an abandoned temple. When he arrives, the other Gungans are already storming its hallways searching for Anakin and the fugitive. Jar Jar simply taps into the Force, allowing it to lead him towards them. He finds them in an isolated part of the temple along with Dooku and a small group of Magna Guards. Anakin is suspended in a ray shield, dangling by his arms and legs. Jar Jar raises his hand and puts his friend to sleep before marching into the chamber with his lightsaber drawn. When the two turn to face him, Dooku's eyes widen.
Impossible.
He has heard stories and rumors of Jar Jar's supposed power, but dismissed them as gossip. After all, he had never sensed any Force sensitivity near him. But as the Gungan approaches, he sheds the shroud that has hidden his powers, allowing his presence to be felt in the Force, filling the room and nearly sending Dooku reeling. Has this Sith Lord truly been hiding under his nose this whole time? Jar Jar lifts the hapless Magna Guards and crushes them with the Force. Dooku barely manages to dodge them as their remains are thrown at him. Igniting his lightsaber, Dooku unleashes a barrage of lightning at the Master, but Jar Jar catches it in his hands and throws it aside. Grievous reaches for the fallen Magna Guard's staff and rushes at him. The two CIS leaders surround Jar Jar and come in with their weapons in hand. Laughing, he dodges their attacks, dancing and leaping from side to side and lashing out with his own lightsaber. He concentrates on Grievous, who is already wounded, and strikes high, forcing the general to lift his staff. He receives a kick for his efforts. When he goes in low, Jar Jar punches him across the face, sending him back. Grievous whirls his arm to unleash a wave of electricity towards Jar Jar, but the Gungan sidesteps this and shoulder rams Dooku, who tries to flank him. The two clash their lightsabers once again. Although an experienced duelist, Dooku can't block these unconventional attacks. He attempts an overhead swing, but Jar Jar uses the Force to pull Grievous in his way, letting his armor take the brunt of the attacks. With the cyborg disoriented, Jar Jar brings his lightsabers up for the finishing blow. The general's feeble defenses are shattered as Jar Jar brings his sword down, cutting his staff in two and embedding his lightsaber in the general's brain. Without Grievous, Dooku is easy prey. Though he continues to defend himself, Jar Jar forces him back until he comes in close and slams the hilt of his lightsaber into Dooku's wrist, forcing him to drop his weapon. Dooku stands back as Jar Jar levels his weapon to his throat.
So you are the true master of the Sith?
Yes, Misa Palpy's master. But don't you so worry. Misa not gonna kill you. Misa has a proposition for you. Misa knows you hate him as much as Misa.
I'm listening.
Jar Jar holds up the Amulet of Influence and smiles.
First, we're gonna need more of these. Lots more.
Before they can enact their plan, Jar Jar releases Anakin and uses the Force to alter his memories, letting him believe that he was the one who defeated Grievous during the chaos of the Gungan attack. However, once the Jedi were gone, Jar Jar took over this temple complex and began recruiting Gungan scientists to study the remains of Grievous to reverse engineer his armor to create battlesuits for the Gungan army. To keep them from revealing anything, Jar Jar would use the Amulet of Influence on them, as well as placing them in suits to keep the new soldiers loyal. For several months, they worked hard to replicate the armor until a working suit was made. Like General Grievous's exoskeleton, these suits would enhance a warrior's strength, speed, and endurance. Dooku would use the CIS war machine to mass-produce these weapons, allowing them to outfit the entire Gungan army. At the same time, another familiar figure resurfaced from hiding as Darth Maul emerged from the shadows and created a criminal empire. Jar Jar would decide to pay this one-time enemy a visit on Mandalore. Maul feels a disturbance in the Force, summoning Savage to his side. The two hurry to the throne room, where they find Jar Jar casually sipping some wine over the corpse of a dead guard.
You sir got some very good drinks here.
Who are you?
The hulking warrior ignites his lightsaber and advances on him. However, Jar Jar simply smiles. Setting his drink down, he grabs Savage by his arm and begins twisting until the warrior drops to his knees. Maul advances, but looks less certain.
You sir best be watching that temper of yours.
Who are you?
Me sir, the master of the dark side. The master of you sir's master.
You trained Palpatine?
Before. But now Misa is here to destroy him. But Misa gonna need some help. So, will you sir join me? Or Palpy? Choose wisely. Because Misa not forgetting the one who sir killed my friend Qui-Gon.
Maul wastes no time in pledging allegiance to Darth Jar Jar. A few months later, the peace that Jar Jar envisioned was nowhere to be seen as thousands of CIS ships emerged from hyperspace around Coruscant. They quickly engage the outnumbered Republic fleet, destroying dozens of ships in a matter of minutes. While the Republic hurriedly scrambles its defenses, a small fleet of freighters and smuggler ships sneaks through the defenses. Aboard one of these ships, Jar Jar and his army of elite Gungan commandos are waiting.
Today, we're gonna free the Republic from tyranny.
As they prepare to land, Jar Jar begins secretly sending messages to select senators. After years of working with Padme, he's created a list of potential allies. These are either senators who have reputations of honesty, or are corrupt enough to change sides. These include recordings of Dooku's conversations with Palpatine and witness testimonies, verifying Palpatine's identity as a Sith Lord. These have been signed by Dooku, Maul, and Newt Gunray. When he does arrive in the Senate, the entire government is in uproar as they talk about the recent leaks. As Jar Jar arrives, he quickly takes control of the situation. While some are surprised to see him taking charge, there is an aura of authority about him that convinces the senators to listen. Jar Jar smiles as he allows the dark side to slowly seep into the room, altering the minds of the senators and swaying them to his side. He offers the use of his Gungan commandos to prevent the Republic troops from getting distracted. This suggestion is met with thunderous applause as the Senate cheers Jar Jar on for his initiative. Lastly, he suggests that this information not be leaked to the Jedi immediately, as they need their attention to be focused on the defense of Coruscant. The Senate agrees with this idea, not wanting the Jedi to confuse the situation further. Even Padme is unable to bring herself to disagree. With the Senate's permission, Jar Jar sends a squad of his commandos to arrest Palpatine. Each one is armed with a cybernetic suit that enhances their physical capabilities. Yet, with these modifications, Palpatine is ready and begins cutting down Jar Jar's advancing troops. They come at him from every direction, but Palpatine uses everything he's learned from his master to stop them. After what seems like hours, a figure emerges from the doorway. Darth Jar Jar looks around at the carnage his apprentice caused and smiles. Palpatine ignites his lightsabers and the two prepare to duel.
My master, you know my loyalty is only to you.
Do you think Misa is a fool, Palpi? Misa met with your apprentices.
And you will be joining them.
He suddenly fires a burst of lightning, but Jar Jar leaps over it and strikes Palpatine from the side. The Sith Lord brings his lightsaber to block, and the two begin to exchange blows. Their crimson lightsabers paint the entire room a bloody red as they clash. Though older, Palpatine has experience on his side and has spent years observing his master. He's grown familiar with his odd movements and manages to counter his attacks. During one failing slash, Palpatine ducks under his attack and slashes a shallow cut against Jar Jar's knee. He stumbles to the side as Palpatine attempts to finish him off. The blow misses and shatters Palpatine's desk. Jar Jar shoves one half of the desk forward, which Palpatine steps over. When he tries to throw the other half, Palpatine cuts it apart and steps through it, unleashing another burst of lightning. This time, Jar Jar isn't able to block his attack and takes it to the chest. He crumples to the ground as lightning courses through him. Palpatine smiles.
You were foolish to take me alone, my master.
Usa says that Misa is alone.
The windows of Palpatine's office explode in a spark of blaster fire. A Mandalorian starfighter appears from outside, with Darth Maul hanging from its hull. He leaps into the room and tackles Palpatine to the ground, allowing Jar Jar to recover. The two raise their swords and strike him from both sides. Palpatine blocks the first of Maul's attacks, sending him stumbling back with a kick. He attempts to finish the job by rushing at him and unleashing a flurry of attacks. One of his attacks sends Maul sprawling, and he looms over him, preparing for a killing blow. Before he can finish him off, Jar Jar comes up from the side and slices Palpatine across the waist. He gasps as his lightsaber falls from his lifeless fingers and collapses on the ground. With Palpatine dead, Jar Jar contacts Dooku and orders him to call off his attack. As the CIS breaks and withdraws their forces, Jar Jar goes on the HoloNet to reveal Palpatine's true identity, showing off the footage of the two battling. While this is enough to satisfy the populace, the Jedi are not, and Mace Windu leads an elite team of Jedi to confront Jar Jar.
Ah, Annie, Obi! Misa so happy to see you, sir.
You are under arrest.
Are you, sir, threatening me, Master Jedi?
The Senate shall decide your fate.
Misa is the Senate.
Not yet. To his surprise, Jar Jar begins to laugh. He throws his head back and begins to cackle, kicking his legs in the air while leaning back in his chair. When he pulls back, he is smiling wickedly. And then there was a shriek, a piercing cry that shattered the window and forced the Jedi to cover their ears. Jar Jar took this opportunity to launch himself into the air. He landed in between the Jedi and swiftly cut down those around Mace. He barely managed to bring up his purple lightsaber as the two began to clash. Jar Jar laughed as his weapon became a flurry of death, moving at blinding speeds while Mace could only step back and defend himself. The Jedi Master could feel the power emanating from the Sith Lord, and began to harness its energy. Slowly, the battle began to even out as the dark side flowed through Mace like a conduit. Rather than stop, Jar Jar continued to pour into the dark powers, leaving Mace struggling to manage it. The power soon became overwhelming, and Jar Jar took the opportunity to strike Mace's head, decapitating him. As he fell, Jar Jar turned to the holoprojector that had been recording. That recording was sent to the Jedi Temple.
No. Misa is already the Senate. The Senate will agree with whatever Misa say. After all, Misa just killed the Sith Lord who became Chancellor under the Jedi's nose. If Misa wants, Misa can turn the clones against you, sir, right now.
Yoda and the other council members saw this and felt the truth in his words, even through the hologram. That strike force consisted of their best fighters, which meant Jar Jar had all the cards. This sends shudders across Yoda's body. More than just being outmaneuvered, he uncovered something truly insidious. While the Senate was playing politics, the clones were fighting, and the Jedi consumed by their own righteousness. Evil was allowed to take hold in the highest offices, and they had been blinded to it. Slowly, the Jedi lower their weapons and surrender. Without the Jedi or the Senate standing in his way, nothing stopped Jar Jar from claiming complete control of the Republic. The Jedi and Senate would continue to exist, though only after its members pledged allegiance to Jar Jar. Dooku was quick to bring the CIS under his heel and maul the criminal underworld. Those who refused are quickly crushed by his unstoppable Gungan commando army. With that, Jar Jar's hold on the Republic and CIS was absolute. He was not just a chancellor, or even an emperor. With the powers he's amassed, he's crowned himself the God King. However, it was not complete. When Jar Jar stormed the Jedi Temple to claim control, he noticed that some Jedi were missing. Some chose exile rather than surrender, including Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and several more. Along with them, Padme joined in the far reaches of the galaxy. There they began plotting their resistance efforts to stop the evil Darth Jar Jar. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.